My name is Anna Elston and I'm the manager for Carer Support Dorset. And for Carers Week we have decided that we're going to put together a simple meal for everybody. Trevor has done it first and now we're following his instructions.
Hiya, Trevor from Carer Support Dorset, and during sort of COVID lockdown we decided let's try a bit of cooking and share this with some of the carers if they want it. Ingredients here, very basic. Tip that I'd probably try and give you is get your ingredients out before you actually start, because it may say in the recipe books you can do this while something's cooking. Not always the case.
Hi, so my name's Ros from Carer Support Dorset and I am going to be following Trevor's recipe for Paprika Chicken. I have listened to the instructions that Trevor sent to me and we'll have to see how it goes because who knows, I'm not a brilliant cook, but I'm willing to give it a go. So here's all of my ingredients and a glass of wine. I feel I'm going to need that by the end of it.
Thanks for that, Trevor. I'm going to give it a go today and see what I can cook up. So I'm all ready, I've got all my ingredients laid out as you said and I'm ready to get started.
Here we are, I'm going to make a start then.
Yes. So starting off with a couple of onions, and if they keep still long enough we'll be able to get through them. I like using the red onions, to be honest. Don't know why, but I think they got a nice flavour. Seem to be a little bit sweeter. Now, if you're like me, you learn things as you go along, and basically get the papery bit off. You can always encourage it a little bit with a knife if you want to. There you go, comes off a treat. Now, during this process, I will take you through the important bits. I am assuming that most people have chopped an onion before. If not, I'll just do one. And for anybody but my age, it'll be in the best Blue Peter traditions. So many of you are probably too young to remember that. But anyway, what I tend to do is leave the root end on and then just cut through, concentrating of course because I can't actually talk and cut at the same time. Don't go all the way through. Now, all things being well, should be able to cut nicely through your onion. You get a bit much rough as possible. There you go, that's the first little bit. And do that for the two onions.
Right, chopping the onions.
Best way to cut onions, get somebody else to do it, as it turns out, because I feel I'm crying now. It's a good job. We don't mind how our onions are cooked in our house.
And it's really unusual for me to be cooking without any music on. I normally have something like David Bowie or Blondie. Usually dance around the kitchen as well, but I'll spare you that one.
Just to cut the onions, got those two nice size onions all chopped up. What I need to do now is cook off the onions. It doesn't need to be a really high flame. Just want a bit of oil, bottom of your pan. It's a good tablespoon or so in there to give it a bit of a heat. All I want to do is try and soften the onions up, so I don't want them to caramelise. I just want to sort of get a bit of colour. So I'll turn that down a sec. Remember, wash those hands, COVID and all that stuff. Now, here's a little thing I like to use them. I use two spatulas. Basically, it's like sticking your hands and using it, and it's like an extension of your hand, and I find they're really, really easy to use. It'd be even better if you could actually keep the onion in the pan when you're doing it, because that's always an important bit.
Right, here we go. There we go. So, onions in. I see that Trevor is showing off with 2 spatulas, and I've only got the 1.
And I've got my trusty wooden spatula or spoon, whatever you call it, and see how I get on.
Okay, onions are going to be softening. And again, I've picked the wrong wooden spoon because I'm left-handed and this is the right-handed wooden spoon, which makes it a bit tricky for us left-handers.
Give that a nice medium to low heat going there. Right, while the onion's doing, I would recommend probably doing the chicken before that. You want skinless, boneless chicken thighs, and what you do with each one is sort of split it down the middle, about 12 or so. So while the onions are going in there, just give it a quick go through. What you can do if you want to make it a bit healthier is cut off the excess fat, and that way it takes your calorie count down, but it doesn't lose any of the flavour. So it's just basically unrolling it a little bit, cutting through, so you get nice sized pieces of meat. Because in a minute we're going to fry these off before putting the rest of the ingredients. And then it's got to have a bit of, I think all the boys in it. Now, one of the most important things is season it nicely. Bit of black pepper. Make sure you get a nice bit of coating over each one. Just cover that up for a second. I'm going to go back to the onions. These probably want to go for about 5 to 8 minutes or so. Just put a bit more heat in that just to cover it. Doing nicely. Right, it's just getting to where I want it to be. Just try and make sure not too much onion jump ship when you're cooking it. Add a little more oil. And let's start cooking off the chicken as well. Now the chicken, ideally you just want to seal it, no pink bits. So I would suggest is create a little bit of space in the middle, get a bit more beef on the flame, and then put them in a couple of breasts at a time.
I see that he's seasoning the chicken well whilst the onions are cooking, so I'm just going to do that. The onions, actually my ones actually seem to look quite big in comparison to Trevor's. I haven't touched them up very small. I think that's really because I couldn't see because I was blinded by the tears.
So I've just cut up and seasoned all my chicken, and my onions cooking along nicely. Definitely hard to actually keep it all within the wok. But I'm going to add the chicken and start frying it off.
If you chuck them all in one hit, you just end up forgetting which ones you've actually done, and when you get the onion gets on them and the rest of it. Best to just do a few at a time. Like you can see, get a nice change in colour there.
I hope I'm doing it justice for you, Trevor. Fingers crossed he's not going to have a Gordon Ramsay moment. Although Trevor never has a Gordon Ramsay moment, I'm sure. So I see Trevor started to put in the chicken, so I'm going to start doing that. I've done quite large chunks, cubes of it.
Because we are going to cook this for over 20 minutes initially. I'll do that slightly loose cover on it. And then after it's had about 20 minutes with all the other ingredients, which I'll shove it in a minute, and it's just keeping the chicken moving and turning it over. It's nice to get a bit of brownness on it. But ideally you're just looking to seal it at this stage. Cooking for 5 today. And the good thing about this is if you let it cool down, and you're cooking more than you need to, whack it in some old Tupperwares or in some kind of takeaway container you've used, and just put the chicken and the sauce in together. And I've frozen this and just microwave it or defrost it and what have you. And it's not too bad after. Once it colours and you've got all the pink bits out of the way, you sort of can pile it into a corner to give you some room to actually do the other bits that have gone in. If there's only 1 or 2 of you, cook more and stick it in the fridge for the next day or just freeze the thing so you've got some meals ready to go. Another thing is got to write what it is you actually put in the freezer and the date you stick it in. Otherwise you don't end up playing that amusing game of freezer diving when you have to Scooby what's actually in the container until you've defrosted the thing. Now getting that last little bit done, you get a couple of garlic cloves. We've got some real chunky ones here because I quite like having the garlic flavour in the dish. So if I'm right, once all this chicken's done, it should be about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. And then we'll be ready to put the garlic in with a little bit of paprika. Yeah, it's looking a bit. Picked a bigger knife, and it's handy for scooping up everything and whacking it in the pan.
In with the garlic.
I didn't have any garlic cloves, but I do have some garlic puree. Well, that's the next best thing, so I'm going to use that instead.
Ooh, you just start smelling that garlic coming through as it hits the bottom of the pan. So you do that for about another minute. And I need a bit of paprika now. Yes, in with a tablespoon of paprika. Right, oops, a little bit extra went in. There we go, that's the end. No harm, no foul. Really, really good. Just try and get some of that paprika all around the pan and get some of that chicken rubbed into it.
I've actually got the smoked sweet paprika. I particularly like that one anyway. So that's the one that I normally have at home. Apparently it says on the recipe you can actually use whatever you like. I think it's not looking too bad. Fingers crossed, all my family are going to be quite surprised and impressed.
I had to borrow this off a friend down the road, and I sent a son down to go and pick it up off her doorstep for me. So thank you, Tasha, if you're watching this. Here's your paprika.
I'm using hot paprika, so hopefully it will give it a little bit of spice. Oh, I'm really making a mess. This recipe isn't meant for messy people like me.
Next thing, get the bay leaves. Now I've got a bay tree out the garden. Just give them a little break so you're releasing some of the flavour. And get your old tomatoes in there. There we go. Give that a bit of a stir. Now, looking for a teaspoon. Yep, that's the point. Mixed herbs. Give those in. Spread them around. Looks like I need to be down there. Get that topped up.
So it's just a case of popping those in.
Okay, so that's gone in, and now mixed herbs.
Put a nice amount in.
So I'm just adding my mixed herbs, and then I will leave it to simmer for a little while.
And then 400 millilitres of chicken stock. Now what we need to do is just bring this to a gentle simmer and loosely cover it with a lid for about 20 minutes. Just give it a little bit of a stir, just to keep it turning over. Yeah, that's nice.
400 ml, which I prepared earlier.
So just popping the stock in.
Oh, I forgot my peppers. Peppers. Oh no. Oh, now is the peppers.
Now I notice the recipe does mention 3 peppers, but if you have a gannet for a son who, if he's eating something, it's like feeding strawberries to a donkey, you just need a little bit extra. So I tend to put 4 peppers in, just to bulk it up slightly. Try as much of the pepper in as you can. Don't know, I find cutting peppers quite therapeutic. And then you're looking for fairly robust pieces of pepper, about 3 centimetres squared, and thereabouts. You don't want diddly little bits, you want to put something you can get your teeth into.
So I'm just now on my last pepper.
Okay, done that for 20 minutes. Looks like chicken is starting to go nice and tender. So the next bit to do, just get your peppers, whack your peppers in, and then just stir those in. Careful with these, because if you're using these kinds of things, they do tend to flip up like a game of Frogger. And then what we got then is leave this simmer with a loosely fitting lid for about 25 to 35 minutes. And then before the end of it, what we'll do, we just mix up a little bit of corn flour and some water, and we bung that in and thicken up the sauce, and that'll be ready to rock and roll.
After all this mess, I better get cleaning up. If only if it was this easy.
Okay, so I've had a little bit of a tidy up, and I'm just going to check it. Well done so far, Trevor, and quite impressed with myself. Thank you.
Last little bit, and that is I put a tablespoon of water in the cup. To that I'm going to add a tablespoon of corn flour, just to thicken this up and make the sauce a little bit more viscous, I suppose is a good word for it. I like that, viscous. Gotta give that a bit of a stir like Billy, otherwise it sticks to everything. can see. Let's steam out a little bit now. Just pour that in there. And in about 2 or 3 minutes that should start thickening up. Good tip at this point, before you start eating anything, remember to take out the bay leaves.
So I just need to add the corn flour in just to thicken it up a bit.
And that should be done. And with this today I'm going to do some rice, and I'm going to put some leek and some broccoli. So we've got a bit of veg to go with the meal. If that's been helpful and you'd actually like to try and do it, very simple. Have a crack. And you know, like any recipe, it's not to be followed rigidly. You can put other bits and pieces in and you could make it your own. So enjoy. Thank you very much.
There we go. And there we have paprika chicken.
I think that's me done. So I should just have to call the rest of the family, and I should just finish off my wine, and then we should all eat together, which would be lovely.
Actually, it's really delicious. Nice little Shiraz Cabernet from Lidl's. Very cheeky, very nice. And it helps the cooking far, far better than what it should be without.
Cheers.
Thanks, Trevor, for sharing the recipe.